Welcome back to Case Closed, Anime Review episode 200, no, 156. This is being the 1044 episode of the series, The Deadly Pork Soup Signal. Another anime original episode, of course. And this, well, I should point out that before I can talk about the episode itself, there will be no review of this next week. You want to know why? No new episode. It's a repeat next week. Basically, it's a remaster of an episode that came out 7 years ago. Yep, they want to do that instead of basically, I don't know. How about the adaptation of Next Canon Case? You could do that. Nope, we have to do that nonsense. So this episode starts off with some of the standard Conan and Mori episodes. Walking along and walking together, and all of a sudden, a murder! And one of the rare times in the original episode, and no Maguire around. Yes, Maguire does not make an appearance in this episode. He is mentioned once, but doesn't make an appearance. Also, Sato's not here either. I'm like, that's interesting. Is she only safe for, like, canon stuff per se? I have no idea. So, what happens in this episode after that? So, they just happen to be arriving at the crime scene. Just by sheer coincidence. And we have this woman who's mysteriously killed. They apparently don't know where the weapon is. Apparently this woman was stabbed. Yes, stabbed. What was used to stab her? They don't reveal that until like the end of the episode. No, seriously, it's not until like toward the very end they figure out what the heck freaking killed her. Yes. Apparently she's like 23 years old. Yes. And of course, like, okay, it's first person suspect, the boyfriend. And it turns out, nope, he had nothing to do with it. He actually had a solid alibi while drinking. And then he goes to visit her boss, who is not a very good character. Well, let's just say he's a very shady person. Apparently, he's been charged with evasion and tax evasion and like assault and battery. He's like a very dangerous person. And they suspect the guy maybe has some murders. It's almost like he's like the show's version. It's like the show he created his own version of Al Capone, a modern day equivalent of him. Except Al Capone was very fine bred. Despite the fact he had that criminal background, he was beloved by the public. This guy, pure scumbag. Yeah, obviously this guy's a scumbag. Like, oh, did you find like a jacket? Like, no, we didn't find you didn't find that's interesting. So, like, you have an alibi? Of course, because he's basically off Neville, like, I was with my wife last night. And it's pointed out by Conan, and obviously point out, though, the wife couldn't say anything to keep the wife off the hook. Because that is something that's inadmissible in court. You cannot use that at all. So, they talk to her for a bit, and she seems very nervous looking at the figurine, the horse figurine on her table. And Conan notices basically the reason why she's looking at it. There's a microphone there. So Conan, very discreetly, Mori of course not noticing this, texts Takagi and Maguire care about this, like, oh crap, and of course speak about there's a hint about the December 7th, and she looks up basically because she mentions that she was previously engaged to some guy and he was randomly killed by some random slasher. Supposedly, anyways, despite the fact to figure out it's actually not some random random slasher. We'll get to that. And there's this big teddy bear there on the couch. Why the heck is it there? Don't know. We suspect that Kumi, that's the guy who's her husband. Did he get that for her? Possibly, but why would he specifically leave it on the couch? Why not? I don't know. Lay it down. The thing is like sitting up. And there's no explanation for it. And after chatting for a bit, and of course, Takagi promising, we'd have protection. And then she just randomly decides to start cooking, and that's when Kumi decides to come in. Of course, she uses Morse code, and like, here's a good luck charm. And the good luck charm, the real later on, happens to be the Detective Boy's badge. Awesome, the fact that the thing made appearance. I mean, she didn't know how to use it per se, but the thing does have a tracking device, and so he's able to track it down, no problem. So after they go back to the apartment, they find the actual murder weapon. What killed the woman? It was a ballpoint pen. It was basically the stuff inside of the pen. I'm like, that's what he used to stab her? Oh, and the reason why, and by the way, Kumi is the one basically behind all this. Comey, that's his name. He tells his wife before he's trying to kill her too, because she says he dare betray her. Oh, by the way, how did he know that about what the heck they said aside from the microphone? He apparently kept a camera inside the teddy bear. I'm like, what? Are you that freaking paranoid about your wife, man? Not only you bug your freaking apartment, you also bug your freaking teddy bear too. And like he's about to kill her, he's like, oh yeah, I killed her because she rejected my advances, and she was too loyal to that brat. Yeah, a guy dating a guy who's around her age, not a guy who's freaking in pushing 50. Yeah, maybe she turns you down, man, because you're too old for her. You're 20 years old. You're like 25 years older than she is. And she has no interest. Apparently, he could not understand the word no. So he's like, yeah, I'm going to kill my wife who I think betrayed me. And then, of course, Takagi shows up with Keba. He's like, screw this. So Takagi, you have Keba catching the wife, who by the way is fine. And you have Takagi tackling Komi's goons. And then here's Conan. By the way, Conan, this is the Sleeping Mori thing. Mori is knocked out for the rest of the episode. He's not saying exactly, like, why the heck he's even freaking out. That was kind of hilarious. So, yeah, this is just so funny. So, then we have it where the guy is stopped by Conan thanks to his soccer ball power shoe combo. I'm like, wow, I haven't seen that in a long time. When was the last time we saw that? That is just pure awesomeness. And the guy's arrested and they investigate. Oh yeah, the guy was definitely responsible for his wife's fiance's death, previous fiance. And also he's the one who killed the other woman. Yep, he was behind both things. So basically, the guy is charged with conspiracy to commit murder, destruction of evidence, obstruction of justice. Like, he got to get my charge. Like, my gosh, I have never seen like more than one charge on the bad guy. Not since that hour-long episode I watched where it featured a real-life kabuki actor, where the guy who was responsible for the crimes in the hour-long episode, my gosh, like, he was charged with an arm's length full of crimes by the end of the episode. This guy, Comey, half the freaking crimes the guy was charged with. Like, my gosh. Like, basically, here, that's long of a list, basically, like, so there's murder, destruction of evidence, obstruction of justice, basically because he interfered in investigation. Wiretapping, yes. Okay, bugging the department, that counts as wiretapping. Yes, seriously, it does. So yeah, lots of charges against him, so he's going to spend some time in prison. Also, falsifying evidence. Yes, that's also a crime too. So, yeah, he's going to go away to prison for a long time. And then, of course, Mori wakes up randomly, like, oh, he's awake now. I thought that was kind of weird. And he calls up Rand. He says he wants pork soup for dinner. He's like, oh, no, I'm shopping right now. It's like, oh, pork soup, and that's the episode. And do not know the plot of this next episode because we're on repeat next week. Yep. But I at least gotta say, the ending of the case was actually quite interesting. A lot better than the weak ending we had last week. That was so weak. This one was a lot better. I at least gotta appreciate the fact it seems like though that whoever this guy was who wrote this episode, who probably was on vacation the past couple months, he comes back and writes a good. Yeah, the post credit scene is not exactly very interesting, but at least it was something that's better than we've had in the last frickin' month. Because it seems like, though, ever since they brought these episodes back, like, it seems like these episodes' endings are so weak. Yes, I would say the only one's episode is not weak is episode, like, of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, of these 6 episodes, the only ones that did not have a weak ending to it, like, it was so weak, was 1040, 1042, because I was actually a canon case. And this one, only half of these episodes actually had good endings. The ending didn't feel rushed at all. It didn't feel weak. That seemed like to me. Because, look at Flying Jack Lantern, weak. Case Illustrated, that was actually a little better. I was like, yeah, pretty weak episode. Yeah. And Figure Revenge, wow, that was like so abrupt, that one. This one, a lot better. A lot better. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I do appreciate the fact that they actually it's like this guy who wrote this episode, like I said, came back. It seemed like he was on vacation, and now he's back to this episode. Yep, that could explain why. Because the last episode, that good ending was Case of Ami's Illustrated Diary, which is episode 1040. He easily wrote like 15 episodes. He at least writes good episodes. I at least appreciate that. And I'm like, no wonder why the last few basically would have weak endings. Because he wasn't writing them. Yeah, there's that. Yeah, so that's going to be pretty much it for Signal View. Next is going to be Kaguya-sama Love is War. Yep. Next video. Bye.